The story of why Fast and Loud ended is not simple, and that is exactly why it still interests so many people today. On the surface, the show looked like a fun and exciting journey into the world of classic cars. Viewers watched old, broken vehicles get turned into something beautiful and valuable again. It felt fast, real, and full of energy. At the center of it all were two very different people. Richard Rawlings was loud, confident, and always chasing the next deal, while Aaron Kaufman was quiet, focused, and deeply serious about the craft of building cars. Together, they created a balance that made the show special. One sold the dream, and the other made that dream come true. For many years, this formula worked perfectly. The show became one of the most popular automotive programs on television, reaching millions of viewers around the world. But behind the scenes, things were not as smooth as they seemed. Over time, pressure started to build, and the cracks began to show. The truth is, the show did not end because of one single reason. Instead, it was a combination of creative differences, production pressure, personal conflict, and growing doubts about how real the show actually was. All of these factors slowly pushed the show toward its ending. Even while it still looked successful from the outside, one of the biggest turning points in the show's history came when Aaron Kaufman decided to leave. For many fans, this moment felt like the beginning of the end. Aaron was not just a mechanic on the show. He was a key part of what made the series feel real and grounded. While Richard focused on making deals and creating excitement, Aaron focused on doing the work properly. He cared deeply about quality, detail, and the art of building cars. However, over time, the demands of the show started to clash with his values. The production schedule required the team to build cars quickly, often under tight deadlines. This meant less time for careful work and more focus on speed and entertainment. Aaron later explained that this way of working did not match what he wanted anymore. He wanted to build cars that took time and effort, not rushed projects made for television. He even said that the last few years on the show felt much longer than they actually were, which shows how stressful the experience had become for him. When he finally left, it was clear that something important had been lost. The chemistry between him and Richard was a major reason why people enjoyed watching the show. Without that connection, the show started to feel different, and many viewers noticed it right away. At the same time, the show was facing another problem that slowly damaged its reputation. Many fans began to question how real the show actually was. In the beginning, it felt natural and honest, but as time went on, some parts started to look more like scripted television than reality. There were cases where cars were presented as rare or special, but later reports suggested that the stories had been exaggerated. Some builds that appear to take only a few days may have actually taken much longer, with work being done off camera. There were also claims that certain scenes were repeated or recreated to make them more dramatic. For casual viewers, this might not have been a big issue. However, for serious car enthusiasts, it raised serious concerns. These viewers cared about accuracy and honesty, and they began to lose trust in what they were seeing. Once that trust started to fade, it became harder for the show to keep its audience fully engaged. Reality television always involves some level of editing and storytelling, but when people feel that the line between real and fake has been crossed too far, it can cause lasting damage. This growing doubt played a significant role in the decline of the show's popularity over time. Another major issue that affected the show was the pressure created by its own success. As Fast and Loud became more popular, expectations grew higher. The network wanted more episodes, bigger builds, and more exciting moments. This led to a faster production schedule and increased stress for everyone involved. Instead of focusing on quality, the team often had to focus on delivering results quickly. This kind of pressure can be difficult to handle, especially in a field that requires careful work and attention to detail. Building and restoring cars is not something that can always be rushed without consequences. When speed becomes more important than quality, mistakes can happen and the final product may not meet expectations. Over time, this pressure can also affect the people involved on a personal level. Long working hours, tight deadlines, and constant filming can lead to burnout. This was clearly seen in Aaron's experience, but it likely affected others as well. The show that once felt fun and exciting slowly became more like a demanding job that never slowed down. This shift changed the energy of the show and made it harder to maintain the same level of passion and creativity that it once had. Legal problems and public disputes also added to the challenges facing the show. There were lawsuits involving business partners and disagreements over money and branding. These situations brought negative attention and created a different image of the people behind the show. Instead of focusing on cars and creativity, the conversation started to include conflict and controversy. Even if these issues were not directly shown on television, they still affected how people viewed the show. When viewers hear about legal battles or business disputes, it can change their perception. It creates doubt and makes the show feel less enjoyable. In addition to legal issues, there were also smaller controversies that added to the overall problem. Reports about customer complaints, questions about car builds, and other concerns slowly built up over time. None of these issues alone may have been enough to end the show, but together they created a pattern. This pattern made it clear that things were not as perfect as they once seemed. Public image is very important for any show, and once that image starts to weaken, it can be very difficult to repair. As all these problems came together, the show began to lose some of its audience. Ratings, which had once been very strong, started to decline. This is a common pattern for many television shows, but in this case, the drop was noticeable. When a show loses its main appeal, viewers begin to look for something new. In Fast and Loud, the main appeal was the combination of strong personalities, real craftsmanship, and exciting storytelling. Once those elements started to fade, the show struggled to keep the same level of interest. The departure of Aaron, the growing doubts about authenticity, the pressure of production, and the public controversies all played a role in this decline. Even though the show still had fans, it was no longer the same as it had been at its peak. Eventually, it reached a point where continuing no longer made sense in the same way. Shows often end not because they completely fail, but because they are no longer able to maintain the level of success they once had. This seems to be exactly what happened here. In the end, the reason Fast and Loud ended can be understood as a combination of many different factors rather than a single event. It was not just about cars, and it was not just about one person leaving. It was about the balance that once made the show special slowly falling apart. The relationship between Richard and Aaron was a key part of that balance, and once it was gone, the show lost its core. At the same time, the pressures of television production pushed the show in a direction that did not match what some of its key members wanted. Questions about authenticity made viewers less trusting, and legal issues added further complications. All of these elements worked together to bring the show to its conclusion. While it may be unfortunate for fans who love the series, it also serves as a reminder of how difficult it is to maintain success over a long period of time. Even the most popular shows can struggle when the things that made them special begin to change. In that way, the story of Fast and Loud is not just about one show ending, but about how success, pressure, and change can shape the life of any creative project. The impact of Aaron Kaufman's departure was felt far beyond just the production schedule. Fans had grown attached not only to the cars, but to the dynamic between him and Richard Rawlings. On screen, their relationship created tension, humor, and authenticity. Off-screen, it reflected the difference between two very distinct approaches to the car business. One focused on speed, spectacle, and deals, the other on craftsmanship, detail, and patience. When Aaron left, it wasn't just losing a mechanic, it was losing a creative force that anchored the show. Many viewers noticed that later episodes no longer had the same spark. Comments on forums and social media revealed disappointment and frustration. Some longtime fans admitted they stopped watching around season 11 or 12, feeling the show had shifted away from its original spirit. This shows how critical chemistry is in a reality series, especially one that blends personality, technical skill, and entertainment. Without the right balance, even a popular show can begin to lose momentum, no matter how strong its ratings once were. Another layer of difficulty for Fast and Loud came from questions of credibility. As the show grew in popularity, viewers began noticing inconsistencies between what was presented on screen and what happened behind the scenes. Certain cars were promoted as extremely rare or valuable, only for enthusiasts and journalists to uncover that the claims were exaggerated. Other times, builds that appeared to take a few days were actually completed over weeks or months, with extra work done off-camera. For casual viewers, this might have seemed harmless, but for serious car lovers, it began to undermine trust. Forums and social media exploded with discussions dissecting each episode. People wanted the story to match reality, and when it did not, the show's image took a hit. Even statements from insiders admitting that some scenes were recreated could not completely fix the damage. Once doubt sets in, it is difficult for a show to regain the same level of engagement, especially when its appeal depends heavily on authenticity and skill. This erosion of trust contributed directly to the eventual decline in viewership. Meanwhile, the pressures of production compounded the problem. As the show became one of Discovery's top-rated automotive series, expectations increased dramatically. Producers demanded more episodes, bigger builds, and more dramatic moments to keep the audience hooked. While this may have seemed like a good problem to have, it put incredible strain on everyone involved. Teams often worked long, grueling hours, sometimes exceeding 100 hours a week, to meet tight deadlines. For someone like Aaron Kaufman, who cared deeply about quality and craftsmanship, this environment was unsustainable. Rushed builds could not meet his standards, and constant pressure created tension with others who prioritized speed over detail. When the very element that made the show successful, carefully crafted builds, was compromised, it created internal conflict and impacted the viewing experience. This demonstrates how even successful shows can be fragile if the production demands conflict with the creative vision. Legal disputes and public controversies also added fuel to the fire. Lawsuits involving Gas Monkey Garage and its affiliated businesses brought negative attention and distracted from the show's original focus on cars. Accusations over money, contracts, and business conduct created an atmosphere of tension. Even if these disputes were not fully publicized on television, they shaped how fans perceived the people behind the show. When a brand associated with authenticity and skill becomes embroiled in repeated legal conflicts, it can damage credibility, making it harder for audiences to remain invested. Alongside these larger issues, smaller controversies, such as complaints about car builds, further chipped away at trust. The accumulation of these factors, legal battles, authenticity concerns, and changing personalities, created an environment where continuing the show in the same successful format became extremely difficult. The combination of these factors eventually led to a natural decline in ratings. When a show's central appeal erodes, whether because of key personalities leaving, doubts about authenticity, or production pressure, the audience naturally begins to drift away. In the case of Fast and Loud, the decline was noticeable but gradual. Early seasons boasted millions of viewers per episode, making it a major success for Discovery. Later seasons, however, reflected the impact of internal and external challenges. Fans who once loved the balance between Richard and Aaron, the excitement of the builds, and the authenticity of the process began to seek alternatives. Some remained loyal, but others moved on, leaving the show with fewer and less engaged viewers. This is a common pattern in television. No matter how strong the start, a series must constantly maintain the elements that made it successful, or it risks losing its audience over time. Finally, it is important to recognize that Fast and Loud ended not because of a single failure or a dramatic public conflict, but because of a combination of intertwined factors. The loss of a key personality, pressures from production, questions about credibility, public disputes, and a gradual decline in ratings all contributed to its conclusion. While some fans may view the ending as unfortunate, it reflects a reality that even popular and seemingly unstoppable shows are vulnerable. Success in television, particularly in reality-based programming, depends on a delicate balance of personality, skill, storytelling, and authenticity. When any part of that balance shifts, it can have wide-reaching effects. In the case of Fast and Loud, that balance changed gradually, ultimately leading to the end of the series, despite the strong legacy it left behind. Even after Fast and Loud ended, the story of Richard Rawlings and Gas Monkey Garage continued, though in a very different form. Rawlings remained active in the automotive and entertainment worlds, expanding his brand beyond the garage itself. Gas Monkey became more than just a TV show. It turned into a business empire. Rawlings opened bars, restaurants, and music venues, licensing the Gas Monkey name across a wide range of products and partnerships. While some of these ventures faced their own challenges, including lawsuits and negative publicity, they demonstrated Rawlings' ambition and business sense. He also remained a visible personality, attending car shows, making media appearances, and continuing to represent the brand he had built. In many ways, his success outside the show reflected the strong foundation that Fast and Loud had created, even if the television series itself was no longer on the air. For fans, this meant that while the show ended, the larger Gas Monkey story continued, keeping some of the excitement and interest alive in new ways. Aaron Kaufman, on the other hand, took a very different path after leaving the show. True to his personality and values, he focused on projects that allowed him to work at his own pace and maintain creative control. He launched ArcLight Fabrication, a company specializing in aftermarket parts for Ford trucks, filling a niche that he felt had been overlooked in the industry. Kaufman also returned to television with his own series, Shifting Gears with Aaron Kaufman, which aired for 2 seasons. While the show allowed him to explore his craft and share his expertise, it did not achieve the same widespread popularity as Fast and Loud. Critics noted that it lacked the tension and dynamic between personalities that had made the original series so compelling. Even so, Kaufman's reputation among car enthusiasts remained strong. He continued to be respected for his skill, dedication, and authenticity. His work at car shows, competitions like Pikes Peak, and various automotive events helped maintain his influence in the industry. For many fans, Kaufman represented the heart of what made Fast and Loud special, a commitment to quality, integrity, and the art of car building. The aftermath of the show also highlighted how much viewers value trust and honesty in reality television. Over time, reports of reenacted scenes, exaggerated stories, and time-compressed builds had begun to wear on the audience's confidence. Once trust is lost, it can be difficult to regain, even if the entertainment value remains high. The lessons from Fast and Loud are clear. While personality and excitement draw viewers in, authenticity is what keeps them invested for the long term. Shows that exaggerate or manipulate events too much risk alienating the audience, especially in niche industries like automotive culture, where viewers are knowledgeable and detail-oriented. The mix of drama, skill, and authenticity is delicate. In the case of Fast and Loud, the erosion of that balance contributed significantly to the decline in ratings and eventual conclusion of the series. Looking back, it is also evident that the legacy of Fast and Loud goes beyond its ratings or controversies. The show introduced a wide audience to classic car restoration, creating a broader appreciation for automotive craftsmanship. It inspired many people to pursue their own car projects, visit car shows, or learn about mechanics. Both Rawlings and Kaufman became influential figures in the car culture community, not only through their television work, but also through public appearances, social media, and various business ventures. Even after the series ended, fans continued to discuss favorite builds, memorable moments, and the personalities that made the show unique. In this sense, the series left a lasting impact that goes beyond any single controversy, legal dispute, or ratings drop. It also demonstrated the challenges of balancing entertainment with reality, showing how creative differences, production pressure, and personal values can shape the life cycle of a show. Finally, the story of Fast and Loud serves as a case study in the complexities of reality television and creative partnerships. Its rise and fall highlight how success is rarely straightforward. The chemistry between Richard Rawlings and Aaron Kaufman created something special, but that same chemistry required careful balance. When one half of that partnership left and other pressures emerged, the show could not sustain the same energy. External factors like lawsuits, public scrutiny, and questions about authenticity compounded the problem, while internal challenges like creative differences and production demands made continuation difficult. For fans and aspiring creators alike, the series offers a lesson in both the potential and fragility of television success. Even a show with millions of viewers, strong branding, and widespread influence can end when the forces that made it great no longer align. In the end, while Fast and Loud may be over, Its story continues to capture attention and spark discussion, an enduring testament to the power of personality, passion, and the art of car restoration. The later years of Gas Monkey and the wider brand continued to show both the potential and limits of what Fast and Loud had started. Even after the television cameras stopped rolling, Richard Rawlings and his team remained active in the automotive scene, taking on new ventures and partnerships. Rawlings bought unique vehicles, collaborated with builders, and participated in auctions and car shows that kept the Gas Monkey name in the public eye. He also maintained the various Gas Monkey businesses, including restaurants, bars, and merchandise, each of which reflected the brand's identity built over years of television exposure. However, these later ventures faced challenges of their own. Some locations closed, others were rebranded, and legal disputes occasionally made headlines.